Okay, we're live.
Okay, welcome everybody. Let's see, it's 6:08 and we'll call this meeting to order. I'll just review who's on the meeting. So we have Member Donovan, Member Green, Member Allen, Member McFadden, Member Pasillo, Member Monroe, myself, Superintendent Aronakis, Director of Administration Bob Ross, Director of Technology Jeremy Taylor. We have Attorney Michael Pollack, and we have District Treasurer Patricia Russo. Thank everybody. Okay, we will go to open forum. Comments must be directed to the chairperson of the school committee, who may limit or terminate discussion. No comment should address personnel, litigation, or negotiations as restricted by open meeting regulations. The school committee cannot take action or vote on topics introduced that are not reflected on the agenda. So you may raise your hand or hit *9 on your phone to raise your hand. See if I see anybody. And *6 mutes and unmutes. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, we will go to the consent agenda.
Thank you. Under consent, we have approval of minutes from the regular meeting on February 23rd, and also the executive session minutes from the same night, February 23rd. We have one leave of absence. This is an extension of a previously approved leave. It is unpaid for the rest of the year. We already have a substitute, certified substitute in that position, and she has agreed to stay for the remainder of the year. Our monthly bills, and then 2 homeschool approvals.
Okay, any questions or comments? Anybody got anything pulled? Member McFadden?
Pull the bills.
Okay. Let's see, everybody else is okay? All right, so if we can have a motion to approve the consent agenda less the bills.
Donovan, so moved.
Do we have a
Michael,
second?
second.
Priscilla
Priscilla.
seconds. Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Member Donovan,
Aye.
Member Green,
Aye.
Member Allen,
Aye.
Member McFadden,
Aye.
Member Pasillo,
Aye.
Member Monroe.
Aye.
Okay, I'm an aye. Motion carries. Okay, Paul, go ahead on the bills.
Bob. Bob? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
$100 in Hershey bars?
What page?
I think it's the second page. With or without almonds?
Without, we're a peanut-free district.
Good enough, Bob. Just checking.
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if I could have a motion to approve the bills.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second it. Priscilla.
Member Pasillo seconds. Okay, roll call vote. Diane, were you raising your hand or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Member Donovan,
Aye.
Member Green,
Aye.
Member Allen,
Aye.
Member McFadden,
Aye.
Member Pasillo,
Aye.
Member Monroe.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. Motion carries. Okay, let's see. Okay, we have correspondence, we have the discipline reports, and then we have the Capital Project Building Committee meeting minutes of February 25th. Any comments or questions on those? Member Allen, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, Diane. Diane, you have to unmute yourself. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Diane, you got to find unmute. There you go.
Yes, I wanted to move the auditor's report to now, as they are here.
Thank you, Diane.
Oh, sorry, did I miss that?
We talked about it while you were.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, we're a little lost. I had a question on the discipline report.
Yeah, hold on, Paul, I'm still on that. I missed that the auditor wanted to get moved up. Okay, so Diane, hold off on that. I wanted, because we're on the correspondence, let's finish that and then we'll move the auditor up. Okay, let's see. Paul, go ahead.
So Jim, I'm looking at the discipline report and it says suspended outside school for one of your comments.
Yes.
So in the old days, if somebody was out of school for beyond 10 days, and I don't know if it is or not, the individual would come before the school committee. Are all of these suspensions that I see that are out of school 10 days or less?
Yeah, they're all single day suspensions. And we have very, very few that we're reporting.
Right, I just saw that. Okay, it just caught my eye that it said out of school, and I'm like, okay, so duration, because we haven't had a child disciplinary report, in essence, an expulsion in 4 years. It seems a little long, but maybe that's me. I take that we haven't had a child expelled, correct?
Correct. We haven't had reason to, which is a good thing.
Sure it is. All right, thank you. I'm done.
Okay. Okay, so we have Diane's motion to move up the, let's see, the 2020 audit report. Do we have a second?
Second.
Member
So-
still seconds? Okay, yep. All right. Roll call vote. Member Donovan,
Aye.
Member Green,
Aye.
Member Allen,
Aye.
Member McFadden,
Aye.
Member Pasillo,
Aye.
Member Monroe.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. Motion carries. Okay, so Pat, are we going to turn this over to you?
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Good,
Yes.
okay, good. Good evening. So I hope everyone has their audit reports. I know the hard copies weren't available yet. We're still in the process of printing those. The report was issued this past week, or last week. So I'm just going to give an overview of the financial statements and the reports, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Very good.
Okay, so pages 1 through 3 are independent auditors report. It's an unmodified opinion, which means the statements as presented here are presented in conformance with generally accepted accounting principles. So there's no qualifications on the financial statements. And then following that letter is the management discussion and analysis, which is on pages 4 through 9. That's prepared by management and reconciled to the audited financial statements. So it's a good place to see some comparative information prior year to current year in summarized format. Starting on page 10 are your financial statements. The first statement is your statement of net position. It's the full accrual statements, which are all your funds combined together on a full accrual method of accounting. You can see in the bottom of page 10, the net position of the district at 6/30/20 was a negative 11.7 million deficit. Of that, approximately 10.6 million is your investment in capital assets. And then there's some remaining small restricted amounts. And then there's an unrestricted deficit of 22.6 million. So again, this is the full accrual statement. So it includes all your capital assets, all your long-term liabilities. It's more like what you would see in like commercial accounting. It's a full accrual. So that's on pages 10. Page 11 is your statement of activities, again, on a full accrual basis of accounting. You can see that your overall net position actually you did have a positive increase. That's like the third line from the bottom. It went up about 1.7 million. So it was going in the positive direction on the full accrual statements. And then starting on page 12 are your fund statements. And that breaks down your general fund and all your other governmental funds combined. So this is your fund statements, normally what you would see on a day-to-day basis for the district. So you can see under fund balance about halfway down the page, and then down towards the bottom, that the district ended the year with an unassigned fund balance of 1.9 million. And then there was some various assignments and committed amounts within the general fund. So your overall fund balance for the year was approximately 2.2 million at the end of the year. And the next column is all your other governmental funds. That's your grants, food service, capital project funds. So combined, those funds ended with a total fund balance of 551,000. Okay, so that's page 12. Then we'll skip page 13. 13 is just a reconciliation between the full accrual and the fund statement. So I'm not going to go through that right now. Page 14 shows your total revenues and expenditures and the change in your fund balance for the year. So you can see the general fund for the fiscal year 20 had an overall net increase in fund balance. So third line from the bottom of 1,173,856. So you have an overall increase in your fund balance from 1,081,000 to the 2.2 million. And then your other governmental funds had a small increase of approximately 100,000. Okay. And then again, another reconciling page, we'll skip over that. And then page 16 is your self-insured health fund. You can see that ended, that's your fund balance with WB at 630, and the activity in that fund is on page 16 and 17. So then I'm going to skip over, starting on page 20 are your notes to your financial statements. That's some additional information that explain how the financial statements are presented, plus some other additional required disclosures. Unless you want me to go over something specific there, those pages go on for quite a bit, but if you had some questions on those, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'm just going to skip to page 59 of the report, which is the budget to actual statements. So it shows your total overall original budget, final budget, comparison to actual. So you can see your revenues overall, shortfall variance negative to budget of approximately 57,000. From an expenditure standpoint, you were positive 1.3. And overall, you had a budgetary surplus of the 1,173,856 to end the year. So that's the budgetary statements. And then starting on page 63 are all those other funds that were combined in the front, all those special revenue funds, grants, food service, capital project funds that are combined and reported in total. So most of those funds are the grants, they're on a reimbursement basis, so they don't usually have fund balance. I mean, it's the revenues are requested and then after the expenditures are incurred. So those don't usually have fund balances in those. So, and then at the back of the report, starting on page 74, there's two reports there. It's our internal control report and compliance report based on our work on the financial statements themselves. And we had no findings. Internal control or compliance as it relates to our audit procedures on the financial statements. And then the next statement, because you do expend over 750,000 in federal funds, you're required to have a single audit. So we test the major programs based on the federal government requirements and the compliance supplement. And based on those requirements and testing, we had no findings to report for the district. So that is my quick and brief overview of the statements themselves. I don't know if you had any specific questions on the statements or any other.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions or comments for Pat? Member McFadden?
So so based on your auditability, if there is such a word, you found no deficiencies, but were there any deficiencies? You defined what auditable deficiencies would be, material and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you found no deficiencies as far as at all, at any level, is what you're telling me on those last pages, right?
Correct. Based on the audit procedures we performed, we had no deficiencies.
Right. Because in the past, I remember you used to write up like how we used to spend student funds and things like that. You felt that we didn't have any material backgrounds for the costing out of the student funds, but I remember one year it was resolved to your satisfaction. So nothing like that, right?
Yeah, or you're referring to the management letter? Yes, there's no management letter that would would report those other items that really don't meet the level of a material weakness or a significant deficiency. We didn't have a management letter either. There was nothing to report for that.
So to summarize, we have nothing to worry about.
Not based on the audit procedures. I did not discover anything based on our audit that I had to report. No.
The whole package, beyond the audit, the whole thing.
Oh, I only base my reports on the audit procedures we perform. Outside of that, I would not be, able to do that because I didn't perform any procedures as outside those audit procedures. So no.
No, not. I'm talking beyond the audit procedures. I'm just talking about financially, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're okay then, right? Based
Yes, I
on
mean,
the
you did have a
80
surplus for
pages
the,
you sent.
you did have a surplus for the year, so that's good. And you do have a positive fund balance and you've met your required percentage that your fund balance policy.
What is that percentage again?
2%.
What is percentage?
2%.
2%.
Yeah.
So 10% would be 3 million. So a fifth of that. I don't know. Does that sound right? I don't know. What our budget is 35 million, and you said our reserve fund balance should be what, 2%?
That's your policy.
So
That's what you try to achieve. That's your internal policy with the school committee.
yeah, okay, all right.
Just shy of 700,000 is what we're required to keep.
All right, I'm good. Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up. So I'm assuming everybody's okay. All right. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Pat.
You
Thank
too.
you, Tish.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Pat.
Tish. Okay,
Oh.
we'll take a vote. If I can have a motion to accept the 2020 audit report.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Member Priscilla, Diane, are you a second? All right, Member Allen made the motion. Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. For Donovan,
Aye.
Member Green,
Aye.
Member Allen. You can raise your hand, Diane. I know
Aye.
you got it. Okay, Member McFadden,
Hi.
Member Pasillo,
Aye.
Member Monroe.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. Motion carries. Very good.
You.
Okay, let's go back up to item F on the agenda. So we have the 2021 budget projection.
So enclosed, you can see the budget projection, and as we move down the page towards the bottom, you can see that the June 30th, 2020 draft general fund balance, that is a change. Last report, it was understated by 157. Now that we have the audit, we know that we're in a better position. We've made the adjustment for the commitments, made the adjustments for the available for surplus for current year, which brings the projected unassigned for 2021 to the to 1.2 million. So, all positive things that happen based on the audit report, but when you start to look at the flow through the year, those monies get assigned, get committed, are held for, per policy, the 700,000. So I think we're doing a good job. I think this year the fund balance was a little higher simply because the end of 20 was a very odd school year for us, and we did not have we had a lot of, not a lot, but we had cost avoidance, which added to the cumulative fund balance, and that's an anomaly. But it benefits us, and the school committee continues to leverage those balances to take care of commitments for the district. So I think we should be applauded for that. The revenues are moving back up the document. The revenues, we're continuing to track Medicaid and miscellaneous income. And the CTE tuitions, those seem to be the ones that have the most fluidity to them, if you will. The expenses, you know, we kind of hit a lull here post February, March. We'll start cranking it back up a little bit with our springtime spending for the second semester of the school year. So we'll just keep an eye on that. But other than that, everything looks good. So very good.
Very good. Thanks, Bob. Any questions or comments on the budget projection? Everybody's good? Okay. All right, the monthly status reports. Do we have comments, questions on those? Member Green?
Yeah, this one is for Bob. Bob, I was just curious about the water treatment there, and just if you had any thoughts as to why it came out or what the cause was of the lead exceedance level.
Yeah, so they do test sites at the junior, senior high school. In the two test sites that had the high or the exceedance levels for the lead, were in a locker room where we do not run the water.
Mhm.
And then in a sink in the science labs on the senior high, which we run the water as infrequently as possible there, simply because that is our biohazard sink. So that's where, when they're doing chemistry laboratory type of activities that have a liquid base to them, that's the sink that those get poured down. That tank, that holding tank, is held. Fortunately, we only have to pump that once a month, but that's handled as biohazard. So we really don't want to be running the faucets and letting that tank fill up, because it's quite expensive to have that pumped out and disposed of appropriately. So those were the two areas where the lead had the high exceedance. And we know that the building was post mid 80s. So we know there's no lead. There's no lead in the solder. There's no lead in the piping. So where does it come from? It can occur naturally at low trace levels. And we're talking very, very low trace levels here, but in exceedance. And then the other is, there is in bronze fittings, there is an element of, of lead in those. And if they sit too long, that lead can just build up. And again, we're talking like, parts per billion here. So it's not, anything that certainly Steve is not concerned with. Certainly our water testing quality, Russell Water is on it, and we're doing more testing than ever.
Mhm.
I did put in as an attachment, but it did not get attached simply because I did not provide it that way. But I have the document from Rido, and basically what they're requiring us. We lobbied hard. Steve did a great job, along with Joel, multiple conversations. But the bottom line is, we need to have a qualified professional engineer design the two systems. So one is for treatment and one is for mitigation. So those will be expensive. Those could be anywhere in the $8,500 to $15,000 range, unbudgeted. So when we get those when we decide how we're going to move forward with that, that will be a request to the school committee to fund that. Then, the real issue is, I'm reading directly from the RIDO letter. If you have 2 consecutive 6-month monitoring periods below both the lead and copper action levels before the end of the 24-month period, so 2 consecutive months or 2 consecutive 6 months within a 2-year period, then we won't have to build the system. But
Gotcha.
they're not gonna
Sounds like
leave.
it's
but they are
concentrated though.
They
If it's
are requiring
concentrated in
us to have the design in place.
I see. But if it's concentrated in those 2 areas, it's not something that can be, it's permeates throughout the building, it sounds like.
Exactly. I mean, when they do test samples, they do like 15. It's really up to the tester. And on this sample, there were over 15 areas tested. In 2 where the sinks haven't been run, basically in the gym since March of last year.
Mhm.
And in the high school science labs,
Okay.
I can't say specifically when, but think about the infrequency of the student
Mhm.
being in class, in session. So it really is, it's leaving a sour taste in our mouth, no pun intended, but we've done this, we did this dance over at Metcalf a few
Mhm.
years back. So
Okay. All right. Thank you.
sorry for taking so long on that explanation, but it is serious. We take it serious.
Okay, very good. Member Monroe?
I actually just had a comment on Jim and Dr. Ahern's status update. The week of the 17th, you both attended a distance learning class presentation. It was actually my son's class. And I just wanted to share how much those kids felt so included. And I know that they were so excited on those projects, and I heard they were quite impressive. So I think it's so important and such a prime example of how much effort you're putting into including distance learning kids into the culture of the in-person environment. So I just wanted to say kudos and thank you.
Thank you. That was the highlight of my day, that particular day. Kids were fantastic. But it's nice to be able to pop into the virtual classrooms too and help keep them included. So thank you for that.
Nice, very nice. Okay, good. I don't see any other hands up. Okay, we will move on to 4B. Review and authorize acceptance of proposals for Westerly Community Credit Union teacher grants. Jim?
So yeah, let me just explain this. This one, for whatever reason, it kind of fell through the cracks. We had sent it back to the principal who wrote the grant to fill out the fiscal impact form, and then it never made its way back to the committee for approval, which is required by policy. At the last meeting, I reported that her grant was actually accepted and awarded by the Westerly Credit Union, but we have never actually seen the grant and approved it. So better late than never. I'm bringing it to the committee just so that we follow the policy. You can see what she wrote for, and you now know that she was actually awarded the grant. It's for maybe something beautiful at Wawalum School, and the grant proposal was included in your packet. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it was a nice, really nice idea. Let's see. Do we have any hands up? Show your hand is still up. I think it was from last time.
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay, good. So if we can have a motion to authorize acceptance of proposal for Westerly Community Credit Union teacher grant, maybe something beautiful.
Donovan, so moved.
I'll
Do we have a
second.
Member Green seconds. Okay, we'll take our roll call vote. Member Donovan,
Aye.
Member Green,
Aye.
Member Allen,
Aye.
Member McFadden,
Aye.
Member Pasillo,
Aye.
Member Monroe.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. Motion carries. Okay, we have item C, new course offering approval, Science Department, Floriculture.
Yep, I'm going to step in here. This is usually Marie's lead, but she's not on the meeting tonight. This is an elective course in the science department. It's connected to the Ag Science approved CTE program. And it is based on some of the interest levels of the kids that are actually in that program. This is an elective, and in my opinion, when we're looking at elective courses, we can offer it, and then we will monitor the number of children that actually sign up for it to determine if it will run. I do believe that there is interest, but we have not completed the course sign-up process yet to determine whether or not it will run in this school year. But it's a good course, connected really nicely to the greenhouse work that's already done as part of the Ag Science program at the high school.
Very good. Do we have questions or comments? Everybody's good? Okay, so if we can have a motion to approve the new senior high course offering floriculture.
So moved.
I'm sorry, Claudine, can I just say, I know it's listed on here, but in terms of cost,
Yeah.
If the course runs, the expenses would be covered in the Perkins grant, which is the money that we now get for having approved CTE programs in our high school. So there's no cost to the operating budget of the district. Sorry, I didn't say that.
Yep, perfect. Okay, Member Priscilla moves. Do we have a second?
Second, Alan.
Member Allen seconds. Okay. We'll take our roll call vote. Member Donovan,
Aye.
Member Green,
Aye.
Member Allen,
Aye.
Member McFadden,
Aye.
Member Pasillo,
Aye.
Member Monroe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Tell Marie we said thank you.
Well, thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to item D. We have the charter revision process, discussion action on the apportionment calculation method.
So this is a direct result of the conversation that we had at the last budget workshop where the town councils were present. And I had asked the question if there was interest in getting together and having a conversation about looking at the current method of calculating apportionment based on the population of kids in each district. And there was a positive response from both towns that they were interested in having that discussion. So the process would be that the school committee approves opening up the charter so that we could get a charter review committee together and begin that conversation. They would look at possibilities, bring recommendations back to the school committee for approval and a vote.
Okay. Let's see, questions, comments. We have Member McFadden.
So, Jim, you said that Bob had done some analysis and that, could you give us, if that analysis is available, what we would expect based on the change in apportionment that was described? I think the apportionment would be a running average of N years. Did you guys do some analysis? And
so we did.
Yeah.
We did start to look at that. We don't have anything 100% ready yet, but that's one option, would be to look at a running average of a number of years. I think we picked 5, Bob, that's what you were playing with. But that's not a decision that any committee has made yet, but we certainly would have it available to look at. We know that based on the 5-year rolling average, if that's a strategy that ends up being approved, the shift from year to year is like 0.3 to 0.5% as the maximum shift in any given year when you start averaging years together. We are going to match that to what's the monetary impact so that we can see what's the impact to both towns under the method that we've used compared to what would the impact be to both towns if we were using a different method, just so that we can see that there's no financial benefit to one town or the other over time but it would just kind of smooth out those high increases and sharp decreases on a year-to-year basis. But that's one option that we can explore. We would have it ready for the first meeting of the Charter Review Committee if the school committee agrees to open that up.
What other apportionment approaches are going to be reviewed?
I really don't know. I think, you know, the rolling average is certainly a possibility, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, whatever that turns out to be, that can be a conversation. I don't know if there are other methods that can be explored, but it would come from the comments and recommendations of this charter review.
So for the charter review that we're going to be creating, is the only thing, so if there are other issues that are going to go before the Charter Commission, which we haven't created yet, obviously, because the composition of the Charter Commission, has that been defined yet? What the Charter Commission personnel profile is going to look like?
So the only thing that we have, because it is not really defined in the charter, so the only thing that we have is the makeup of the last time we got a charter review committee together. That would be representation from the school committee, representation from the 2 towns, including town council members, and then administration of the district.
I think we had community members too, didn't we, on the Charter Review Committee?
Yeah, so representation
Yes.
from both towns, including members of the town council. So it's both.
And community members.
Yeah.
Not, yeah, okay.
Yep.
So with this motion, are we doing 2 things? We're putting one thing before a charter commission that hasn't been created, and we're going to create a charter commission, correct?
So it's, Paul, it's, if I can, Jim.
Yeah, go ahead.
Paul, it's going to be a motion to establish a Charter Review Committee, and then the Charter Review Committee will come up with, they can come up with 1 idea, they can come up with 5 ideas. But they'll make a recommendation to the school committee, and then the school committee votes on the recommendation that moves forward. So the review committee can talk about, you know, however many ideas they all come up with. I think it's important to note that it's going to be school committee, Exeter Town Council, West Greenwich Town Council, and community members, obviously along with Jim and Bob.
So will the things that you're talking about that could come before the charter, do they come before the committee first, or do they just go right into the charter without our, because I'd like to be, from a school committee perspective, I'd like to know what they're considering in the charter commission.
So this vote is that the only conversation is the apportionment method, and anything that come up with would have to come back to the school committee for review.
But also,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I understand that. Maybe, so I understand what you're saying, Jim. I want to make sure that I understand. Things that the Charter Commission are reviewing is the level that I'm interested in finding out. I don't want to see the exit of the Charter Commission results. I want to know what they're reviewing in advance. So in other words, in here, they got something called apportionment. They may have in their regional school deregionalization. I'd like to know what's being considered by the Charter Commission, not the exit of the Charter Commission. Do you understand?
Yeah, it's focused on, Paul, it's focused on the apportionment calculation. We're not putting anything in there right now.
Right, but if we do, right, the school committee is going to know what you're reviewing, right, Jim?
Yeah, if there's anything else that the Charter Commission needs to review, it would come to the school committee before the topic gets introduced to the Charter Committee, because the only vote that you're taking right now is to open up the section on the apportionment calculation method. So that's.
That's fine. So all I'm asking is that the school committee knows in advance before it goes to the charter commission, whatever hypothetically may come before so in this case, you're saying right now, okay, it's just apportionment. In the future, if it's something else, it goes to the school committee first, then it goes to the charter, correct?
That is correct.
Yes, correct.
Basically,
All right, I'm
you
good
would
with
be
that.
establishing a new committee.
Yep.
If there's some other thing that you're looking into, you would take another vote and establish another committee to look at that particular area. But right now, you're opening up the apportionment provisions.
Yep.
So that would be in the vote that you folks would be taking tonight.
Correct. Oh, are you good?
If we just follow what's in the motion, I'm good.
Yes, we're going to follow my motion. Well, as of right now, anyway, I don't see any other hands. Oh, Lee, go ahead. Do you have a comment? Question?
Yeah, it's when you open up the charter for review, the charter gets looked at, and it's not, you can open it up for apportionment, but that doesn't mean it stops there. Never has in the past, but you are correct. Anything that comes out of that goes to the school committee, and the school committee makes the decision as to what gets moved forward.
Well,
But in the past, we've opened up the charter review committee without any parameters.
No, that's not true. It's been opened up in the past for specific purposes, but when you do that, you cannot control basically what gets looked at. And I've sat on every charter review committee now going back 12 years. So
well, but I think
everything will get looked at. I'm just putting it out there. It will get looked at, and recommendations will be made, and there'll be, again, it's up to you guys, the school committee, as to what moves forward, but there'll be a bunch of recommendations that come out of it. I
don't think that's correctly. So it's not to say that we can't add things, but the charter review is a committee it's a subcommittee. It would be a subcommittee that we would give direction to as to what we want them to look at. Yep. So let's say in a couple of weeks, we do add something else that we want them to look at, but it would be on a vote of the school committee to set the charter review committee to review. So it doesn't work that way. I'm telling you, it hasn't in the past, and it won't in the future. So I'm just putting it out there. Well, I don't believe it's in any specific language that it opens up the whole charter. So, I mean, our vote tonight, if we establish a charter review committee right now, it's going to be focused on apportionment, and we can add things to that later on by vote. But right now, that's all we're looking at it for. I mean, the thing is, Lee, I mean, how I'm looking at it is if the charter review committee spends time on other items, and the school committee has no interest in opening up other items, that's a waste of a lot of people's time. I'm just telling you what takes place. I've sat on two, and it will, we can open it up and we can focus on this, and we're interested in focusing on this. Absolutely. But I'm just telling you, it does not preclude us from looking at other things that are of importance. Other things are going to come up. And that's what's happened in the past. It'll happen this time. And, recommendations will come forth. And when those recommendations come forth, they will go, you have the final say as a school committee as to what gets moved forward. But I'm just telling you, that's going to take place. I just don't want to waste people's time on the charter review committee, you know what I mean? So I guess I would suggest there's other things we can add to it, down the road, but I guess what I would say is if the charter review committee, if their focus is on apportionment and something else comes up in the committee, before there's time spent on it with our director of administration, our superintendent, and obviously, people are going to be dedicating time to it, I would suggest that get communicated to Jim and I. And then, we can bring it before a school committee if we want to open it up for that. I just don't want to waste people's time because I don't know. That's where I am on that.
Claudine, it's Michael, and I would agree with that. I mean, the school committee is creating a subcommittee and charging it to look at one particular area.
Correct.
That's essentially what happens. And Mr. Kissinger is certainly correct that the school committee, you know, if tangents are followed, I mean, the school committee ultimately has nothing's going before the town council that the school committee does not authorize and does not want to, you know, does not recommend. I mean, the recommendations are you know, have to be voted by the full school committee.
Yeah, my goal is just like I said, I don't want to waste people's time because these things take a lot of time and effort. So if something comes up in the charter review committee that they want to look at, I would suggest it comes to school committee first for a vote before people spend time on it. That's my only comment on that. Okay, so now I have some hands up. Member Donovan.
I think Diane was trying to raise her hand
Oh,
before.
sorry. It's very difficult to run these
yes.
meetings, everybody's hands and stuff. Okay, go ahead, Diane.
Okay, thank you. I think for the new members, it would be helpful if they knew how many members from the public, how many members from each town council, and how many members on the school committee will be on this charter commission.
Yeah, Jim would have to take a look and see what we did last time because we don't have anything in the charter that states what we, you know, how to run it. Jim, do you know how many we had from each?
So I'm just speaking off the top of my head because I did pull the file to look at what we did last time. And it was either 2 or 3 members of the school committee. I think it was 2, 1 member from each of the town councils and the administration representation. And then I want to say that there was 2 members of each community that were appointed or 1. But you know what, just to be 100% sure, I can pull the file, it's on my desk, and just send that out to the full committee tomorrow morning with exactly what the makeup was the last time we ran this.
Okay.
That was in like 2014 or so that we did this last time.
Yep. I mean, tonight we're going to take a vote, just so everybody knows, we're going to take the vote to establish the charter review committee, but we're not going to look on forming it just yet. Let Jim take a look and see what we did last time, and then we can appoint people at the next meeting.
Yep.
Would you just a question, I mean, would you establish, well, is the idea to have it in the same you know, the same folks that were on last time, maybe not individuals, actual individuals, but the same form, the same makeup?
Well, that's the only thing that we have to go on, so that's what we would propose.
Okay, so then you could establish the committee in the same form as previously utilized, and then, you know, it would take the same shape as it was prior.
Yep.
Yeah, that's our intent. Yep. Okay, Member Donovan.
Thank you.
No, you were getting your stuff out.
Hold on, Member Donovan. I don't know who's.
Everything's gone.
I don't know who that's coming from.
Okay, I think we're good now.
Okay, I think we're good.
Thank you. I have a question for the solicitor. Often when an entity has a charter, it also has a requirement of a total review at an established time period, like every 10 years or, you know, something mandatory like that. I didn't know if you knew for sure whether or not our school district's charter required a periodic overview, but that leads to my real question, which is, can the school committee establish a charter review committee for this very specific limited task without them looking at the overall product? And you're muted.
You would be authorizing and establishing a subcommittee for a particular purpose. Now, what happens in that subcommittee, humans are humans, I don't know, but their purpose and what your authorization is for is one particular purpose. Now, to actually move anything out, like a recommendation regarding the apportionment, that has to be taken. The only thing in the charter is that a recommendation for an amendment has to be made can be made by the school committee on a majority vote of all members. So everyone has to be there, everyone has to vote, and it's got to be a majority. That moves it to the town council for the all-day referendum. If the charter subcommittee comes back and has, okay, we have XYZ recommendations for apportionment, we have XYZ recommendations for whatever else, the school committee who created it, which would be you folks, have the sole authority to move up the recommendations, and only those recommendations regarding the apportionment. So again, like, the school committee can create a subcommittee, and the school committee can charge that subcommittee with, this is what you're supposed to do. This is your raison d'etre, right? But, it's incumbent upon the members of that subcommittee to comply with what the school committee is looking for. Anything moving forward, anything that has any real effect has to come, again, it's what you folks, it's your say.
I understand. But as Claudine said, this can be a very time-consuming process if the charter review committee takes it upon themselves to do an overall review and starts to look at other things that are not related to this, and even the act of making the recommendations, bring them before the school committee taking public comment and sorting them out and filtering them down to the issues at hand. All of that has to take place before it can go on a ballot. But, to say, this is a time-sensitive issue. The more years this does not get addressed, the more difficult the process becomes for whichever community is being hit in any given year. So the sooner we can address a solution to it, the better. But, I think about it in terms of a collective bargaining agreement. I know sometimes, in the middle of a term, if you want to open up the contract for one thing, you open it up for all. And I think that's what Lee Kissinger was referring to, is that you open it, then it's the total review. And that was my question to you, is would we be able to give a directive that this would be the sole issue that would be addressed and reported back to the school committee?
This charter does not even technically require a review committee. That's been the practice of this subcommittee as to how those things have run. So the charter itself does not govern that process. The charter itself does not govern there's nothing in the charter that says that you have to create this review committee in the first place. This is how you folks have operated in the past. It seems to have worked in the past. It brings everything on the table to both the towns and the committee as a cooperative type of process. So again, that my answer isn't based on the charter itself. It's how a subcommittee is created by the school committee and run. So all the charter says, as far as amending it, is that the school committee can make a recommendation based upon that type of vote that I just discussed. Basically, you need a full majority of all members. That's it. And then, if down a rabbit hole, and the members of town, there are other provisions regarding that. But as far as action to amend from the school committee, it's that simple. The charter is very quiet on amendments.
Jim and I reviewed this as legal ahead of time, so what we put on here, we just so you know, we did review it thoroughly. Terry, are you done?
I think so. Did I get out of that we don't have to establish a charter review subcommittee that the school committee could
Yes,
advance the
yes,
notion on its own and vote on that?
yes.
And then advance that to a question to the district voters?
Correct.
Correct.
So Jim and I placed on here to open a charter review subcommittee with precedent. I don't, so.
I got it. It's a subcommittee of
Has
the,
membership from, again, both town councils, community, school committee. So it's a nice full representation.
We're losing you, Claudine. We're losing you.
Because you have to remember in our charter, can you still hear me?
No,
Jim, can you hear me?
not well.
All right, hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
How about now?
We heard
On?
a little bit muted, but I mean, a little bit muffled.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
How's this?
Good.
That's better?
Yes.
Okay. So Jim and I reviewed with legal, the charter obviously in details. Yeah, it's good. Okay. So the subcommittee that was set want to stick with precedent again because it gives full representation with the town councils, school committee, and community. So the charter reads, if we go from a vote from school committee, it goes right to all-day referendum. So before it gets to the voters. So that's why we have the vote on that we have tonight. Okay, Member McFadden, go ahead. Member McFadden.
Oh, I was just going to comment that I was having difficulty hearing you again.
I think I'm good now,
Well,
right? Everybody can hear me?
That's better.
I apologize. My husband's
Yes.
working from home for the past 2 days and he moved the router, so it probably messed me up. Okay, Lee, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to say that, there is a provision in that charter that the towns can open the charter up for review. And I'm also going to say that it's always been a cooperative effort through a subcommittee to open it up. And, and again, my comment isn't to slow things down. I'm just letting you know that if it gets opened up, things are going to get looked at. It's not going to get decided this year anyway. I mean, because you still have to go, if you make a change, it still has to go through a state process. So you've got to get all the words changed. It's got to go before a legislative body in Providence. They've got to, it's not going to happen this year. You're probably at best next year. So I'm just putting that out there. And I would hate to see you go down a road where you're going to make a decision, put it out to the voters, and we do have a right to open that up. This is a contract between a school district and two towns, so we can go down a road ourselves. So just keep that in mind, and then we will control what's done. Thank you.
According to the charter, in order for a town to open up, it needs 10% of registered voters to sign a particular petition. So that's the other way. There are two ways. There's the school committee way, which we discussed. And then as far as the towns are concerned, a petition has to be signed by 10% of the registered voters from any one town. So that would do it as well.
Okay, is everybody good? You guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I've gone from my office to the kitchen to the family room. So I'm very disheveled, so I apologize. Okay, so let's see. So we need a motion to establish a charter review committee to make recommendations to the school committee for revisions to the school district charter relative to apportionment calculation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Member Pasillo moves. Do I have a second?
Donovan second.
Donovan seconds. Okay, take our roll call vote. Member Donovan,
Aye.
Member Green,
Aye.
Member Allen,
Aye.
Member McFadden,
Aye.
Member Pasillo,
Aye.
Member Monroe.
Hi.
Okay, and I'm an aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we'll go to business. We have the 2021-22 budget discussion.
I have nothing new. We've talked about this quite a bit.
Yep, I agree. Anybody have any questions for Jim on the new budget? Everybody's good? Okay. Let's see, 2020-21 reentry planning updates, and under that we have the band performance.
Yeah, I have a couple of things. So I just wanted to include the plan for moving back to performances in music at our junior senior high school. That's something that we've not done based on the guidance. The guidance was recently updated by the Department of Health. Mr. Charest took the lead in putting together a new plan for the junior senior high school consistent with the updated guidance, and the kids are back to performing, which is a big plus for a lot of our student body. You know that we are in the process still of looking at expanding in-person learning at our high school. We've done the conversation with faculty. We will communicate back with faculty again. We've sent out a survey to families. We've got pretty close to all of our families that have responded, so we understand the interest. We've worked with the bus company to look at options for transportation for the children that will require transportation. We've not established a date yet or made a final decision, and that's because if there are no changes to the current bus guidance, it's going to require some pretty substantial changes to the current routes, and we would have to add some buses in order to make it happen. That would dig into some of our surplus because it's unbudgeted. However, we are expecting, based on conversations that are happening at the state level, we are expecting some updated and relaxed busing transportation guidance to come out within the next week or so. And if that guidance comes out, when that guidance comes out, it would be better for us to hold on completely revising the bus routes, only to revise them again a week later. So we're trying to time this so that everything has to be done only one time, and we can minimize the expenses if there are any expenses. But again, we have the money in unassigned, well, not even unassigned. We are projecting a balance at the end of this school year. So we would still be within the balance, but the expense would be fairly small, and in return, kids would be able to come back to school 5 days a week, which we know tons of them need. I just want to make sure that we minimize it and time it so that we only have to do it once. So that's kind of where we are at the current time. And then I think the school committee is aware that we've arranged for a vaccination clinic for our staff. And by our staff, I mean all employees of the district, including the individuals that work for our food service company, the bus drivers and monitors, all the workers at the bus station, administration, school committee members, everybody that gets a paycheck related to the school department is invited to this clinic. And that's because the president President Biden and then Governor McKee have both pretty much mandated that staffing have the opportunity to be vaccinated before the end of March. So that all kind of came about between the last meeting and this meeting of the school committee. Those clinics have been set for next Friday for the first dose of the vaccine, and then 3 weeks later for the second dose of the vaccine. Every employee of the district who wants to be vaccinated will be vaccinated by pretty much the first week of April, which is pretty awesome. So those are my updates.
Excellent. Any questions or comments for Jim? Everybody's good?
Yep.
Okay, capital project update, bond discussion.
I'll be real brief. We're working on several different fronts. The warning has been vetted by the bond counsel. That's been forwarded to the superintendent's office at like 5:30 today, so we can start production and get that into the hands of the town sergeants and disseminate that to the public. So that's for the voter for the budget and for the bond. The design or the schematic design are still currently under review at RIDE. We're hoping that those will be completed next week. I'm holding off for another day or two to set the next building committee, simply because at the next building committee, the committee is going to have to take the action to approve the design and development drawings, which then would be the second submittal to RIDE, second of 3. So we're working on that. There's been some discussion about how we're going to move forward with the bid packet, but I want to, it's just in the preliminary discussions, and that will be discussed at the building committee level once that meeting's scheduled. Member Monroe, serving in her dual role as school committee member and on the capital project building committee, has taken on the task of putting together our communication flyer, marketing flyer to the public, and is working on that as we get documents from different people. The superintendent, the treasurer Tish, and I are meeting tomorrow to go over the financial component that will go into the document, and Andrea's working on getting the formatting all down, pictures of, what existing conditions and then what it will look like after and what we're actually trying to accomplish. So busy, 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 but all very positive.
Very good. Andrew, thank you for taking on that task. That's awesome. Much appreciated. Okay, any questions or comments for Bob? Everybody's good? Okay. Let's see, we have important dates and meetings. March 22nd, we have the public hearing at 7 o'clock. That's going to be virtual. That's a public hearing on the budget. March 23rd, school committee. April 12th, the all-day referendum. Evening school committee meeting at 8:30. April 13th, school committee, and April 27th, school committee. And then I'm going to acknowledge Member Donovan. She'd like to acknowledge a person who passed, a former school committee member who passed away. Terry?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry to say it's not someone that I have met personally, but William Muskowski Jr. of West Greenwich had served on the school committee and recently passed away. And I wanted to make sure that we recognized him. He had many contributions to his community and to our district. And we extend our condolences to his family and his friends.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks for bringing that to our attention too. Thank you so much. Okay, Jim, anything on your end?
No.
Okay. Okay, we don't need executive session tonight, so we can have a motion to adjourn.
So
Donovan,
moved.
so moved.
Okay, so we have moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Michael, you moved. Terry, you want a second?
Sure, I'll second. Thank you.
Member Donovan seconds. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Member Donovan,
Donovan, aye.
Member Green,
Aye.
Member Allen,
Aye.
Member McFadden,
Aye.
Member Pasillo. Michael, you're muted. Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, Michael's an aye. Member Monroe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Motion carries. Okay, thank you, everyone. Sorry for the challenges. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Good night.